So I stumbled across this really interesting video on the internet, but let me preface by saying we're really close to World War III, and although I can't speak for everybody, a lot of us do not support this war because we have an all-time high in inflation and poverty, and we just don't agree with our government sending our tax dollars and printed money over to Ukraine to help them out, especially when our country is trillions of dollars in debt. But anyway, this video that I stumbled across, it's of Rachel Maddow, the entertainer, because that's all she is, that's all she'll ever be, commenting on this anti-war protest, and the bitch is stupid. Check this out.
Truly random rally on the National Mall in Washington, D.C. A rally in support of Russia, I guess?
No, not in support of Russia, not in support of Ukraine either. These NPCs are trying to gaslight people into believing it's either black or white, that there's no gray areas. Oh, you don't support Ukraine? Oh, well, you must support Russia.
Given all the Russian flags?
I'm just going to point out that those people holding the Russian flags are most likely infiltrators hired by either the FBI or the media, just like the infiltrators at January 6th. They got to hire infiltrators to sabotage the message in the protest in order to reinforce the gaslighting they're doing, that there's no gray areas, that you got to be either one or the other. I mean, anybody with a little bit of common sense can figure that out. They're not fooling anybody.
All the Russian flags, at least a rally against the U.S. supporting Ukraine in trying to stand up against the Russian invasion of their country. This was a tiny event. It was small. It was a weird assemblage of Americans. There were Proud Boys there. There were some of the white supremacist groups you'd recognize from the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville a few years ago.
I'd also like to mention that if you look really closely at the two guys holding the Russian flags, you'll see by what they're wearing that it's the same two guys in all the shots that they show. Now, if you're just skimming the video and you're not really paying that much attention, you might not notice that at first. That's what they're counting on. Oh, here we go again with the white supremacist shit. She said there were white supremacists there. Well, if there were white supremacists there at all, it was probably a very small number. And they don't speak for or represent the majority of the people that are protesting against the war who are not white supremacists. And the reason that I said if they even are there at all is because these days they just slap the label white supremacist on anybody. Anybody that's not even an actual white supremacist. Anybody that they disagree with. Anybody that challenges their narrative or something like that. Automatically, they're a white supremacist. And although I'm not a Proud Boy, I will say the Proud Boys are not white supremacists. For one thing, their leader is not a white guy. And for another thing, a lot of their members, although there are a lot of white people within them, they also have people that are not white within their groups. I mean, when you go around calling everybody a white supremacist or a racist or something like that, it's like a slap in the face to people that are victims of actual racism and shit. And not only that, but it also further divides people. Now, while most people of all races and ethnicities can see right through that bullshit, see it for what it is, unfortunately, it does have an effect on some people. Like, for example, I had a previous job a few years ago, and I had a disagreement with this guy, and he accused me of being a racist. Didn't know me, didn't know any of my background, just accused me of being a racist because I had a disagreement with him. And I'm like, dude, my fucking stepmom was black, man, and she helped my dad raise me from the time that I was a baby. I love that woman like I love my real mom. Get the fuck out of here. Anyway, let's continue to watch this horse shit.
Some of the white supremacist groups you'd recognize from the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville a few years ago also represented prominently the remains of the bizarre Lyndon LaRouche cult. There were a lot of people with Russian flags, also the occasional flag of the former Soviet Union.
I feel like I'm losing brain cells listening to this bitch speak, but I feel like I just have to pick this shit apart and point out all of her fucking stupidity and lies. She says there were a lot of people with Russian flags, but as we can clearly see if we pay attention, there were only 2 people with Russian flags in multiple shots. And she also says the occasional flag of the former Soviet Union. She said occasional. Well, I didn't see more than one. I only saw one, so therefore it's not occasional. Well, maybe 2 if that one flag next to the other Soviet Union flag was also a Soviet Union flag, but we couldn't really tell because the only thing we saw was the bottom part, which was red. Might have been, but no more than that. That doesn't count as occasional.
Also, at least one person who guest hosts for Tucker Carlson on the Fox News channel was there as a featured speaker.
You know, I also think it's really disrespectful that she doesn't even call Tulsi Gabbard by her name. She just calls her a guest host on Tucker Carlson. Well, here's a little fun fact about Tulsi Gabbard. She's actually a war veteran. She worked in the infirmary in the war. So she has seen the bloody results of war. The injuries, the amputations, the post-traumatic stress, the horror. And that is probably one of the main reasons that she's anti-war. But she's a fucking war hero. Not just some guest on Tucker Carlson's show.
There were anti-vaccine conspiracy theorists, a lot of them. There were cryptocurrency promoters. It was a really weird group. It was a small rally and a weird one. But that's what it looks like. That's the assemblage of short straws and split ends and loose change and loose electrons that's advocating in this country that Russia's in the right in this war and America should be on Putin's side as he keeps invading other countries.
Anti-vaccine conspiracy theorists. Just throwing all the talking points out there, aren't you? Oh, and she also mentions the anti-vaxxer conspiracy theorists, the people that don't want to take an experimental vaccine because the people that made the vaccine are not held liable for side effects. She mentions cryptocurrency promoters too, as if it's a bad thing, when the Federal Reserve is printing dollar bills left and right, devaluing the dollar. And as if she didn't put enough emphasis on it the first time, she hammers away at the fact that they're obviously pro-Russia because they don't support the war in Ukraine. They gotta be pro-Russia. I can't speak for everybody, but I'm pretty sure the majority of the people there, like myself, even though I was not there, believe that, no, Putin's not in the right, but at the same time, this shit is none of our fucking business. We need to focus on making our own country better, not helping out other countries. And Putin's not trying to take over the world. He just wants that territory for his base. Who cares? Let him fight it out. I mean, it's very clear that this stupid bitch has absolutely no idea what she's talking about. Whenever these NPCs spew their bullshit, take it with a grain of salt, do your own research, think for yourself, and question everything.